But one thing that we are hearing that's going to be coming out in 2022 via Bloomberg, Sony is planning for sure now a subscription service to combat Game Pass. And so far, what we got is to launch in spring of 2022. It's going to have a 3-tier service that will merge PS Now and PS Plus. Tier 1 is pretty much just going to be our current PS Plus that people have now. Tier 2 going up is going to be a collection of PS4 games, so it's going to be the PS Plus plus PS Now in one deal. And then Tier 3 is going to have those two plus a catalog of PS1, PS2, and PS3 games, all in this nice big old bundle for people. And supposedly on release, it's going to have 100 plus PS1 games will be available at launch. PS2 games are going to be coming later in the catalog, and then PS3 are still to be determined of when they will be actually released for this bundle. So if you buy the Tier 3 starting out, it looks like, unless you see a lot of PS1 games you want to play, you might want to hold off on it, at least for like the PS2 stuff comes out, maybe PS3, depending on what you're looking at wanting to play. And then no new Sony titles will launch on the service day one like Game Pass, which is a slight disappointment.
Yeah, a couple things with this. It's like Tier 1, just basically the PS Plus that we have.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they don't change my pricing for it, I'll be happy. And then the fact that no day one for new games is a bit of a disappointment.
That is going to be a bit of a disappointment, seeing as it's apparently everything we've seen, even when this was in rumor mill for us a couple weeks, that it was being marketed as a competitor for Game Pass. And one of Game Pass's biggest things is new games, day one, let's play. And then PlayStation is just doing a giant catalog of their games versus new games.
Yeah. And the way Sony kind of operates with things like this, it begs the question of how long do they want to wait for a game to actually move to that service?
That will be a good question as well. I mean, with Sony right now, I would probably guess several months.
Yeah, it's like several months at a minimum is what I would say, because they're not gonna give it like release a game and be like, all right, it's been 4 months, throw it on there now, because at that point it's like, well, I mean, if it was something because that's part of the greatness about Game Pass too, is the fact that they basically put everything on there.
Yeah,
it's like a game you may have seen and been like, oh, okay, that came out recently, I guess I'll go ahead and jump on it and try it out because it's there, and it's like it's been there since it came out for most of these.
Yeah, that is sort of a nice point above for Game Pass, at least starting out initially. From what information we have, is just they do have that catalog of newer games that are out on Game Pass within, if not the first day, within like a month usually. For pretty much all the big name games that are on Xbox usually. The only exceptions are some few titles that cross over and whatnot that are new. But for the most part, like even the Yakuza games, as soon as they finally got into other platforms, they got on the Game Pass real quick as well.
Yeah, I think for wanting something to compete with Game Pass, I mean this will be decent because it's going to bring a lot of the older games into it. I guess a lot of that's going to depend on what the pricing between the different tiers is, how much people go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as wanting a competitor to Game Pass, just bringing it back to the day one, that's where I feel like they've kind of missed the mark, because Game Pass, it's like Microsoft drives sales with Game Pass from putting their big games on their day one.
Yeah.
Like you may think, okay, well, they're paying, it's like they might be paying $15 a month for it, but it's like they'll be paying $15 to play the game rather than $60 or $70 to play the game. But at the same time, even if they got it for I'll get Game Pass for this one big release, they're not going to stop once they see what's in there.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Once you see the catalog of games, it's like you're like, well, shit, I might as well just keep this with how many games are in there. And then next thing you know, you've had Game Pass for a year and a half, and you've paid way more than that one game you wanted to play.
And I mean, to be fair, I mean, Game Pass does eventually take some games off, but it's usually games that have been sitting on there for usually at least a year, year and a half, or just games that no one's really touching anymore. So, I mean, it is a good bargain. And the other thing with Game Pass that really, at this point in time, seems like it's going to put it over the new PlayStation one is the whole Microsoft thing of crossplay. And that if you have Game Pass, you have all these games on console and you have it on PC. Whereas at Sony at this point, we still believe they may make a PC launcher at some point, but there's still no actual concrete news of that right now. So it's only on your PlayStation. So, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I think the biggest thing with this 3-tier system is going to end up being driven down by price point. Because the difference between just basically getting the PlayStation that we have now and then we've got here a good collection of PS4 and PS5 games. Depending on what games are actually on there, is it gonna be worth going to tier 2 and then like having tier 3 be all of the older games? I don't know. I almost feel like that should be reversed, where you have the current or in like past just last generation consoles be the higher tier and let everybody play their old nostalgia games in tier 2. I feel like that would drive the sales better.
I feel like you're right as well, but I can see the other point of nostalgia factor. Because look at Nintendo Switch online thing. They got this 64 stuff at a higher just because, I mean, it technically is the newer compared to the NES stuff that's on the lower tier, but I mean, it's also 64 at least for people around our generation, and I think the generation after us, to have a lot of nostalgia with 64 games. So they could definitely milk that more with Nintendo. And I feel like the same way with Sony is PS1 through 3 games. They can get a lot of people just getting it for nostalgia factor and the fact that a lot of those games are nigh impossible to find at this point, or if you can find it, some of them are stupidly expensive. Why? Because nobody's making them.
Yeah, I see your point there. I guess the difference between like Sony with the way they have it, and Nintendo's just shameless about it.
Yeah, Nintendo's just outright shameless about it.
And
Sony's more or less like, well, there's these tiers, and you get all these sets in this bundle.
Yeah, where Nintendo's just like, you're gonna pay it, give us the money, and have fun.
This is like your 8th time buying it. Just do it again.
But yeah, no, I do like seeing the the Sony service coming in. Hopefully, this ends up being better than it looks on paper right now. Because on paper it looks decent, but not anything special.
I hope it is too, because I mean, at one point, PS Now. I actually used to have PS Now on the PS3 era, which actually had a decent catalog of PS2 and PS1 games. But with PS4, that catalog slightly disappeared. I don't know what happened. They mostly went just to PS3 and some PS2 games and like a dispersing of PS1. But the main thing that really hurt, and it may have just been my internet at the time, was just like the stream rate of it was just not great. And sometimes I would just get cut off just because either servers being wonky or my internet was crap.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing that they would have to have with this service is the ability to just let us download the game rather than streaming the game.
It, like they like to do with PS Now and stuff.
Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe that's the change they're going for with it, is like once you move up a tier, we let you download the games. Because as it stands right now, does anybody have PS Now at this point?
I assume somebody does. I know
Somebody's
I don't.
got it out there, but it's like they must, because you would assume Sony's got this. They're having to hold the server space for this collection to be able to stream it to people. It's like, why do that? You're already going at your attempt to copy Game Pass. Just go the extra step. Let us download the game.
I mean, hopefully they do, because that would make it a lot better and probably would push people a little bit more to paying that higher price for Tier 3 if it does stay streaming. And the streaming for it's not great. I could definitely see that hindering them.